Good evening and welcome to the Shebeen. My name is Barry Chandler. Sunday night, you're very welcome for an evening of Irish whiskey chat, crack, community. We have a very special night lined up ahead. I'm delighted that you're here to join me. I look forward to the next 12, 13, 14 hours of a session that we're going to get to know each other a bit better over a drop of Irish whiskey. Tonight's a very special night. We are going to have a world exclusive behind the scenes tour of the brand new Causeway Distillery, the extension, the evolution of Bushmills on Ireland's north coast. And I'm looking forward to sharing an incredible tour with you, thanks to Alex Thomas, the master blender. So it's a special night. I'm looking forward to what we're going to learn, see on the tour. I hope that you've got something nice in your glass, something Irish, preferably. I'd love to know what it is you're drinking, whether it's a drop of Bushmills, maybe you've a drop of Black Bush or Bushmills 10-year-old, or maybe you found something more special on your shelf. But whatever you've got in your glass, I'm delighted that you're here. The Shebeen is a chance every Sunday for us to get together, to celebrate Irish whiskey, to come together as a community, to connect, to have the chat, and to feel a little bit closer to one another, no matter where we are around the world. So pour yourself something nice. Let me know what's in your glass. Sit back and relax, because we're going to have a great evening touring the new Causeway Distillery in Bushmills this evening. You're all very welcome if you're just joining us. This is the Shebeen. Every Sunday night we get together and we talk Irish whiskey. We sip on a bit of Irish whiskey. Tonight we are focused on one particular brand. We're focused on Bushmills Irish whiskey, because it is an extraordinary week for Bushmills. It is a week where a new distillery was officially opened, where they officially announced the first time in their history crossing the sales of 1 million cases of Bushmills. And it is indeed the 415th anniversary of the charter granted by King James I in 1608 that led to the creation of Bushmills Distillery. And not only that, it is the 19th anniversary of master blender Alex Thomas's tenure or joining Bushmills 19 years ago. A lot to celebrate, a lot to talk about. We'll get into all of that tonight. If you've got a drop of Bushmills in your glass, let me know. I'm also curious if anybody has ever visited the old Bushmills Distillery on Ireland's north coast, on the Causeway coast. Let me know in the chat if you have. I just got back from a fantastic few days for the launch, the opening of the Causeway Distillery. I know many of you are tuned in tonight to find out a little bit more about it. Those of you in the whiskey industry are curious to see what's happening up on the north coast. And those of you who just love a drop of Irish whiskey want to know, where is it that you're going to go visit next when you are touring that part of the world and taking in some whiskey experiences. And I think you'll be adding the Causeway Distillery to your list. So hello to Bob Fenney. He's joining us with a drop of Causeway Sauternes, Bushmills Causeway Sauternes, cask finish in the glass. Good stuff. Mark McKenzie got to splurge, and he has to splurge and get some Bushmills 16. I agree, Mark. You do get that port cask contribution. You won't be disappointed. Kevin Weiss is joining us from Austin, starting with some Black Bush this evening. Lauren McMullen, proud Bushmills team member, has got a 2008 Muscatel in her glass. Steve has got a drop of Bushmills 12-year-old Distillery Reserve. Wow, you're all cracking out the old Bushmills tonight. Fair play to you. Michael Considine, Bushmills 16-year-old, and made it to the old Bushmills Distillery about 6 years ago. We had a wonderful visit to the distillery last year as a community when our whiskey bus, our inaugural whiskey bus, paid a visit, one of the last stops of our tour. And it was an incredible experience. Thanks to Alex Thomas and Lauren McMullen, our 30 guests on our whiskey bus had an absolute ball, a full day at Bushmills, seeing behind the scenes areas where normally others aren't allowed. Our group was allowed in and to experience aspects of the distillery that really got us up close to the production and to the people. And the people of Irish whiskey are what excite me and what get me here every Sunday night, drive me to spend every day promoting Irish whiskey. I've said it before. I'll say it every time I come on air. I'm not a whiskey expert. I'm a whiskey evangelist, because I'm just so proud of the people and of Irish whiskey, the pores of Irish whiskey, and the stories that go with all of those things. And it's the people that we build these long-term relationships with that I think make us feel closer, not just to the whiskey, but for many people, Irish overseas or those who are maybe of Irish descent, they start to feel a little bit closer to home, and they start to get to know people who are involved in something like the whiskey industry, which they may have an interest in themselves. And so I've always said that if you took away the whiskey and just left the people, I'd be just as happy. And I really mean that. And the tour we're about to experience tonight is a great example of something that happens in the world of Irish whiskey on a daily, weekly basis. I see it in our community online. I see it amongst you here in the chat tonight, that many of you meet up, you connect, you chat on the phone, you chat over Zoom, you meet in person, you host each other in each other's homes. As recently as last week, I saw a few of you getting together, Amy and Cheryl and Jeff. I saw you getting together in Arizona. You all met over Irish whiskey through our community. And I see this again and again. Our tour through Bushmills and the Causeway Distillery that we're going to share tonight is a result of that same thing. It's meeting with people, it's connecting. When COVID hit us in 2020, March 2020, I pressed go live on a live stream for the first time the day before St. Patrick's Day, 2020. And it was the first live stream that I'd ever done. I think it was the first live stream in Irish whiskey at the time. Everybody was on Zoom and live streaming within months of that, of course, but it started something that kept going like a train that just wouldn't stop. It turned into a thing called the lock-in, where for 63 weeks in a row, 63 Friday nights in a row, I pressed go live and stayed on air for 3-4 hours at a time, bringing together amazing people from the world of Irish whiskey, from those who made it to those who drank it, those who marketed it, those who sold it, those who promoted it. And we had an incredible 63 weeks in a row. One of the great nights that we had on that lock-in was when we had Lauren McMullen, brand ambassador for Bushmills and master blender for Bushmills, Alex Thomas, join us. And we had a fantastic session. We got to know and meet them and get introduced to them. And I think, and many of you who were there at the time remember that night, we all connected and just felt it was a great connection and a kind of a meeting of the minds and a meeting philosophically of those who just want to have crack around Irish whiskey. Fast forward a year and a half later, January last year, we had our first ever in-person event at Bushmills, where we had a Meet the Maker event, a live streamed from inside Old Bushmills Distillery with Alex, with Lauren, because we had swore that we would do it once we could. We would get together once COVID allowed it. And we live streamed for about 3, maybe 4 hours from inside the Old Bushmills Distillery. That included walking through the warehouses, streaming on our phones, sharing with you. And many of you came along for that journey, and it was fantastic. On that walk around the distillery grounds at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, Irish time, there was a particular part of the Old Bushmills site and grounds and campus that we didn't share on the night, and that was the Causeway Distillery. And Alex asked, and Lauren said, "Listen, you can share this. It's a secret. We've built this distillery. We haven't told anybody about it. It's been a really difficult thing to do in the middle of COVID. But if you just keep it quiet, don't tell anybody about it. We promise when we open the distillery officially, you'll get the first tour through it." And we didn't say a word about it. We didn't talk about it. Those who were on the whiskey bus got a glimpse of it from afar. Didn't get to go anywhere close to it. But tonight we get to share that live tour, or that tour of the Causeway Distillery. And friendships have been made with Lauren and with Alex and with many of you who've gotten to know the team at Bushmills as well. So it's been a fantastic week up on the North Coast, getting to see everybody again and getting to feel the sense of passion and excitement that exists around not just Bushmills, but Irish whiskey. And I'm old enough to remember in the 1980s, there were 2 distilleries operating on the island of Ireland. There was Middleton in County Cork, just 12 miles from where I lived in Cove, and there was Bushmills on the North Coast. Those were the 2 distilleries flying the flag for Irish whiskey right up until the late 1980s. Today, there are more than 40 distilleries, 45 maybe at the moment. But in the last 3 years, more than €1/3 billion, or maybe close to $400 million of investment has been announced by just 2 of those distilleries, the same 2 that were there in the 1980s, Bushmills in Northern Ireland and Middleton Distillery in County Cork. Those 2 distilleries have announced and are at various stages of expanding in a massive way. The opening of the Causeway Distillery for Bushmills is part of a £60 million investment in warehousing, in plant, in bottling, and of course the distillery itself. Middleton and County Cork last year announced a €250 million expansion. Both of these expansions at both of these distilleries are equal to a doubling of capacity at both distilleries. And what that means for us in the world of Irish whiskey is confidence, it's excitement, it's hope, it's an investment in the future, and it's a sign that the distilleries that have been around for the longest still believe in the future of Irish whiskey and are investing in it. And what that means for the rest of the industry, because the small distilleries who don't have that kind of money, they have to stand on the shoulders of the giants who can invest in the world of Irish whiskey. And when Bushmills and Middleton invest, they have to recoup that investment, and they recoup that investment by telling the world about Irish whiskey through distribution, through marketing, through sales directors and brand managers and brand ambassadors on the ground, knocking on doors, telling people what Irish whiskey is, so that when a smaller distillery comes along and tries to sell Irish whiskey, bars, restaurants, distributors already know what it's all about because there's been such investment in it. So we're going to celebrate that investment tonight. We're going to celebrate the growth of Irish whiskey. We're going to celebrate what is a golden time for us to be interested in Irish whiskey. And we're going to do that through a tour of part of that investment. The Causeway Distillery is part of Old Bushmills, the site of Old Bushmills. Distilling has been happening in and around that area for 415 years, certainly right on that site since 1784. And Bushmills is a single malt distillery. That is the only style of whiskey produced there. They don't make grain whiskey. They don't make pot still whiskey. They only make single malt whiskey. The expansion, the building of a second distillery to the rear of the Old Bushmills distillery increases capacity by an extra 6 million litres a year, 6 million litres of pure alcohol a year, which is an extraordinary amount. And it doesn't stop there. The way the distillery has been built allows for a further expansion through an additional wing or two, up to 17 million litres per year. Enormous numbers. We're going to celebrate that tonight. How this will work this evening is I'm going to play for you the tour, which we recorded during the day. It's much easier for us to do it during the day rather than trying to do it live. And we've got two parts to our tour. The first part is about 20 minutes. The second part is about 15 minutes. We'll play those live. I'll take questions. I'll be sitting behind in the chat. I'll answer some of your questions while we're playing the tour with Alex Thomas. And then after part one, we'll have a little chat. I'll answer more of your questions, and then we'll play part two. So if you have any questions about Irish whiskey, if you have any questions about Bushmills, and there's team members from Bushmills who are tuned in tonight, who are probably in the chat, we'll maybe be able to answer questions for you too. But look, in any case, like I said before, I'm not an expert. I'm an evangelist. I'm proud of the Irish whiskey industry. I'm proud to share it with you. I'm proud of any opportunity to get fantastic, passionate people in front of you so that you might connect with them and get to learn about what they're doing, and maybe warm to not just the things they pour, but the passion for what they make. And I think when you watch these videos, that'll come across very, very strongly. So let me pause there for a second, just to have a look at the comments before we start our tour. Lots of amazing comments coming in here. I'll keep an eye on these as we go through. So many of you have opened bottles of Bushmills. So fantastic. Really, really great. And Lauren says, I've been sitting on that news about the distillery for more than a year. I have. And it's an amazing, I'm just so lucky and delighted that we get to be brought back. And thanks to Alex and Lauren for bringing us back and saying, come on in, we'll give you that tour that we promised you a year ago. And we're all the better for it. So I'm excited to share it with you. All right. So with that, I want you to sit back. I want you to enjoy this. I want you to take in the information. I want you to connect with it. I want you to write down the questions you have, put them in the chat. I'll respond as much as I can in the chat, and we'll come back and talk about it in about 20 minutes. But thank you to Alex for giving us this amazing tour. Thank you to Lauren. Thank you to Colm Egan, Master Distiller, and Colm will kick us off in this video as well with a few words. So sit back and enjoy the tour of the new Causeway Distillery.
It's such an exciting time to be at Bushmills now, and especially in this new distillery. It's just been a great commitment in the long term, really, from Proximo. This multi-million pound investment, and I suppose it's really, a statement for the future. Bushmills has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we're always really forward-looking. So at the moment, we built this wonderful, beautiful distillery, I suppose, to keep replicating the same taste and to make the same whiskey. But the important thing is the longevity, that we continue on and look for innovations, continue on making the great whiskey that we have. So we still are going to make sure that we have enough of this single malt in 10, 20, 30, 50 years time. So we have and we know the best way to make single malt whiskey. So we have all those secrets, and all those secrets have actually been put into this distillery itself. All these nuances have been weaved into this great building, into this great new distillery. And what we've ended up with is, very good sustainable practices, but really very traditional ways of making single malt whiskey. One of the reasons the distillery has been located in this area here is the water source, but also there really is proximity to the ports, and it's been always synonymous with the Giant's Causeway, because our water flows over the same basalt rock that has been and formed the Giant's Causeway all those thousands of years ago. So when you take a drop of Bushmills, you're actually tasting a little bit of the Causeway. So what a perfect way, I suppose, to cement that relationship is to call this new distillery the Causeway Distillery. So on April the 20th, 1608, we got our first license to distill. Well, what a great way to have an official opening of the latest, I suppose, evolution in Bushmills Distillery itself than on that great date. So 415 years celebrating all that history, but yet Bushmills has survived because we always look to the future. We're always innovative. So this is part of our latest innovative practices, our latest innovative ways of making great single malt. So I think it's a date that's perfect to launch to the whole world what this new distillery looks like. The Causeway Distillery, I suppose, to see it being developed from a plan on a piece of paper, almost what was in my mind and what I would like and what I envisaged on doing, and then to see it in its finished state, I do have to pinch myself sometimes. But when I do walk down here and I walk into the still house, I must say, if I dreamt of a perfect still house, it would actually be in the still house in here. Everything that has been handed down, all that history and knowledge has gone into that area, and I think it just represents everything that's great about distilling and great about how to make really good single malt. And I think we have nailed it inside there, so love it. It's like being transformed, and it brings a big smile to my face every time I walk in there.
Welcome. Look at this amazing distillery in all its glory in this beautiful sunshine day. The gods have been good to us, or the angels maybe have been even better to us. Come on in, I want to show you around. Look at this. We even have a beautiful hoop lantern to welcome you in with the ice cubes ready for the whiskey. Look at this. This will be our visitor's experience. You'll come in here, you'll meet us, you'll enjoy your whiskey here. You'll get to do a tour of our amazing new distillery.
So still being broken down from last night's
It is indeed, yep. We're now on the turn back into production side. We stopped for a few days just to celebrate our birthday. 415 years yesterday. Like, you couldn't beat it. Come on for a sneak peek.
Wow.
So the vision for this distillery was that you could stand in one spot and see every part of the process. So from this spot you can see the mill, you can see the water tanks, you can see the lighter tun, you can see fermentation, and you can see the still house from this one spot.
Tell us about this massive piece of equipment here.
This is our phenomenal lighter tun. So our existing distillery is 10 tons. This one is 14 tons. So everything from here over to the mill, are designed so that we can actually go up to be a 12 million litre distillery. The fermentation and still house is only capable of doing the 6 million at present, but that gives us future expansion. So the building is in the shape of a T. So this is a T and the arm is here. So we've got our mill, our water tanks, our lighter ton, our visitor experience and our still house, and then at the back we have the fermentation, but that leaves space on either side that we can add in more fermentation and more still house, so the whole lot can go to 12 million very easily. So it will eventually be a rectangular building. But let's have a wee walk around and see. In our other distillery we don't actually get to see the mill, but for us the mill is one of the most important starting processes. If we get that wrong, we have trouble from there right through the process. So having a 6-roller mill rather than a 3-roller mill gives us more ability to change the ratio of the husk to the flour to the grist. And it also can store memory there. So if we bring in the same type of barley again, it can then remember that. If we want to try something different, 2 years later you bring the same thing back, you can store it there. But it is a beautiful piece of equipment that really needed somebody to let it be shined and let you come and see it. Our destoner is there as well. Everything about this building is about the process. So we did the process first and then we put the building out round it. Main thing was sustainability, ensuring that we could get the best out of our barley we could, and the best thing for our employees. So health and safety was really prevalent here. So everything below this level here is our yeast fridge and removal of any of the stones or any of the metal that's in, any of the barley that comes in, but it's all at ground level, so it can be wheeled out very easily and picked up by fork trucks. The lorries can drive straight in. It's a one-way system, so no reversing. Every single detail was taken into consideration. If you come along here, then you get to look down at the next level as well. You can see everything is at a grand scale in this building. You get to look around and see open space every single place you go. Lovely windows to look out the view, and our amazing water. 2 main ingredients here is our barley and our water, and that helped us get this distillery to the same character as the other distillery. So the water comes from St Columb's Rill, malted barley from the south of Ireland, and it just gives the same complexity that we have in the other distillery. But here you get to have a look and you get to see that water of St Columb's Rill that you don't get to see in the other distillery. So from here, come around and have a little peek in. At every opportunity we could have something for a visitor experience and for them to see that they don't get to see elsewhere. It's inside this building, as well as the fact that you can have a real process in here that's great for our operators. We worked with some great companies to build this, and they had the same pride and passion about what they were doing as we have here at Bushmills. So every single detail of what they did was perfection, and that was exactly what Bushmills is all about. Like, you can see even the straight stacks, every single little bit of a detail is there.
Now, you've been sneakily producing whiskey here for a few months.
We are delighted to say that it took 18 months to build this, but we were in process and making whiskey in July 21. 2 months roughly to get into character, so it was a slow amount of liquid we were making from July right through till we got the character, but it gave us time to make the tweaks that we needed to. But 2 months in a building this size and you're in character makes my job really easy for the future. The casks that are laid down in the warehouse are exactly the same as they are from the other distillery, so having that ability to grow Bushmills and the brands here is just phenomenal. So we're really excited for the future to see how the Irish category can go, and Bushmills will be up there as #1. Look at this. I think a spaceship has landed. A phenomenal sized vessel. It made sense to think of the future, and that's what Bushmills has been doing for the past and for the future. We're always thinking about those that come after. It made sense to put the equipment in now to allow us to go to 12 million rather than having 2 mills, having 2 lighter tons. It also gives us the ability now to turn around our mashes from 5.5 hours in the existing distillery to 3.5 hours here. The advance in the equipment and the ability to use this at speed, even though our fermentation vessels can't cope with it at the moment, if we are in summer shutdown and start up, we can go full tilt to fill all of our washbacks. But look inside at this beauty. In the other distillery, we only have 1 arm that is constantly turning and raking the bed, so it can have issues in certain areas. This one has got those 6 arms, all of those lightering knives constantly cutting the bed and increasing that draw off, making it so much easier. Technology also helps to pinpoint if there are any issues so that we can aerate the bed or lift the bed up so that that liquid is flowing away all of the time. Amazing. Have you ever seen anything like it?
It's massive. I've never seen one this size.
Unbelievable. So once the liquid comes from here after the 3.5 hours, it has to go and ferment. Let's go and have a look and see. Like, what a fermentation room. Bathed in sunshine just for you today to come and see. In the other distillery, we have 10 washbacks that hold 48,000 litres. In this one, we have 8 washbacks at 65,700, but we also have our wash charger in here. In the other distillery, that sits in the still house, and that's all it does. Here, it acts as another washback for us. So again, start-up times, you can react much quicker and have a constant flow from the fermentation. 50 hours in the other distillery, 50 hours in this distillery. Process is exactly the same. So what leaves here, going to the still house, is the same as from the other distillery. Phenomenal. Each one of them has a window so you can get to look in. We learned this from the other distillery where we put 2 in originally for our visitors to experience what was going on inside. Now we've put them in, all of them, so that we can see ourselves as well as go with the equipment what's happening inside. It was also part of our health and safety. In the other distillery, when the vessels have to be opened to take the samples, the CO2 is obviously being released. Here we don't have that because everything happens in the lower level. So no longer do these hatches have to be opened on a regular basis. We have taps downstairs, and they are definitely worth going down to see. The craftsmanship the workers took to ensure that that looks every bit as good as this level is unbelievable. So
I'd love to know more about, as we go through, how did you ensure consistency of spirit, or what you were trying to replicate, what you've been doing for hundreds of years in one distillery?
Yeah, I suppose for us we were quite lucky because we're building a distillery on the same site. We had all of the same raw materials. We had the ability to know the shape of our stills. We knew what the possibilities were. So this is in a grander scale from a size point of view, but the simplicity of what we're doing is exactly the same. So the stills are the same size, they run at the same times, and we can get that character off quite easily. So it's that consistency, I suppose, of using the same water source, using the same barley and the same process here. So it was many years in the making. It didn't happen overnight. So we knew the history of all of that passed down from generation to the distillers, so that we knew how we could make things better. We knew the craftsmanship that goes into Bushmills and what makes it special, and we just had to replicate that here.
Amazing.
If you want to follow me again, we're thinking of energy here. So even the lights in the building, they go off. They stay off until somebody comes in. That's not the case in the other distillery. They're on all the time. So we were constantly thinking about how we could save energy. And you'll see part of that when we go into our still house. We're getting about 10% more out of our lauter ton in the process of the barley, taking all those sugars out, which gives us a more ability and a sustainability and a cost efficiency from that point of view, as well as the amount of money that we can save in energy. We're still reusing all of our wet grains and our syrups to go to that animal feed to ensure that there is no waste. And we've been at zero to landfill site for over 10 years. So we're just continuing to look at how we can improve those sort of things. Wait till you see this room. Welcome to the lower floor of fermentation. The operator comes down in here, the engineers come down in here. So we thought about every single step of the process. What will those teams have to do? If you're in the other distillery, you'll be ducking down, you'll be bending round, you'll be trying to figure out how's the easiest way to get in. Steps are the only sometimes how you can get in. Here, look at the pipework. It's all above. It's here so the mute can drive down, the operator can go up safely. Anything he has to do in underneath the vessels is all at waist height. But just look at the electrical cabling. You can see that the contractors, this meant as much to them. Every single one of them runs straight down. No overlapping, the trays are all straight. They just took such care in what they did. I talked to you about the sampling points upstairs. Here you can see, this is where we draw off the samples now from the washbacks. It's a tap, the operator can come down in very easily and take their sample rather than having to open those doors. So every single small detail was thought of. It was 4 years in the making. We had a 3D model so that we could really walk through the plant that way to ensure that we could get every single thing in its place. But when the contractors came and helped us, they were looking to see what they could do to improve. We thought we got it absolutely perfect in our 3D model, but the wee tweaks that they did to make it even more special for us at Bushmills was just such a joy. And to have them come back to the distillery and see it in its full glory, there was many a tear in an eye the other night, I can tell you. They just were so proud of what they've achieved.
What about the size in terms of litres and capacity of the various vessels you've seen so far?
Yeah, so the washbacks in the other distilleries, they're 48,000. Here we're 65,700. So there is a lot more capacity there. And that's what we were trying to do as well. It was reducing the amount of vessels that we had and using our space the best way we could. So this works really well for us for the size of the litre ton. And working along with GIA, they have a great experience in the brewing side. So they were helping and aiding us on how we could do things the best way. So for us, it was about getting the best contractors. So we had the best of the best there to help us. GIA were there on this side of the business, and then we have Versailles in our still house, who are experts in their craft. And when you see our still house, you will know exactly what I mean. This is amazing, and so is the other building. Stainless steel and copper were united here, and it really has been a dream for us to have the building look so, so well. The process is here. It works exactly how we want it to work, but I think you'll agree it's a pretty special place. Oh. From here then, I'm going to take you now. We're going to go in to the bottom of that spaceship. There's no other way I can describe it. It's how it makes a difference. It's how we get that time down to 3.5 hours. It's the continuous improvement that we can do to ensure that we can get the best out of the barley. Like, look at just even the size of the corridors we have in here. Everything is designed for mupes and everything to come in. Anything that's being moved out over shutdown, there's no issues with it moving pipe work, anything that we need to get done. Look up. What can I say? Every single one of those pipes is drawing off that lovely liquid to send into our washbacks. It makes a huge difference to the other distillery where there isn't as many pipes. We're not constantly having that feed. So again, improving what we do in the designs. We also have put in the vessel you see at the back as draft bin. So in the other distillery, when the vessel's being emptied, we have to wait till the wet grains make it out to the bin. So it can take half an hour to 40 minutes sometime. Here we are able to dump all of the wet grains into this tank at the back in about 15 minutes, even less sometimes. And it is then piped out, but we can start mashing in straight away.
Incredible.
So the yeast is the same yeast that we're using here, and we do the bubbing process exactly the same. But we thought about the process of bubbing. Bubbing works really well because you put the cold yeast in. It's really cold, it's shivery, but we're waking it up before it makes its way into the washback, so we can start fermentation straight away. We thought, well, if that works that way, can we do something with the malt? So in the other distillery, the malt and the water go in together in the lighter ton. Here we have an extra vessel. If you want to follow me around here, you'll see it, where it actually starts the mixing process before it gets in there, which again helps that speeding up process of 5.5 hours down to 3.5 hours. Again, you can see here the lovely water tanks. Even in the lagging in round is all perfect. Cabling continues exactly the same as you saw in fermentation. Every tray is straight, every cable runs true to it. You can see our wee bub tank here, and this is the mashing in tank then we're talking about. So the water and barley are mixed in there before it moves into the lighter ton, and it just gives that much more activation and the process starting for us beforehand.
Will you give us a bit more information on the bub tank and how that works and what it does for the production?
So for us, as I say, the yeast is sitting in our store, and if you think of yourself, if you're out on a cold night, you're sitting there, you're shivering up, and you're not wanting to do too much, by adding it into the wort, it makes it just that little bit livelier. So when it's ready to go into the fermentation, it's ready for a party, just like us on a night out. So it goes in and it starts producing that alcohol for us straight away. So that's why it's a process we are true to using here. And I say for us then adding in the second knowledge from GIA and helping us with the mashing side helps you get that understanding of mixing beforehand, just makes all the difference for us. This is where I'm talking to you about our yeast fridge and our destone. Everything is on this ground level and access from outside. So the lorry just pulls up outside, and then I'll give you a little sneak peek. The door on the other side. So straight in from the street, pallets are in, massive big fridge.
And you use a standard distiller's yeast?
Yes, we do. It's the normal distiller's yeast we've been using for years. So it's been working with Murray for many, many years, and they supply. So it's for us, it's the best that we can get for ourselves. Here is one of the things that for us causes the most headaches in the world. Your heat exchanger can block very easily because of different particles blocking all of the plates, and it can take 2 days to separate every one of those plates and wash them down, which is a major stoppage for us at the distillery. And it is a problem we have with the equipment at the other distillery. So again, better practice, what can we do here? So this time we've put in 2 filter housings. So what this does is it removes any of the debris before it goes through the cooling process. They work independently, so if one blocks up, it flicks over to the other and lets the distiller know. He comes down and empties, and we start up again. So there's no stoppage. So every part of our issues in the other distillery were thought about and improved in here. And then what we learned here, we'll take up to the other distillery.
You must have had a long list from the old distillery of all the things you wanted to do.
Exactly, and it is. It's about the little things that cause issues to the operators, to the process, the fact the building is built the way it is. So it's all the different things that could potentially cause you issues we wanted to ensure that here we didn't have. And you'll see one of them in the still house, thinking of our shutdown. Every year we have to replace certain parts of the copper. Copper wears out, so we have to change different parts of the stills, and we have to take the roof off the other building and take them out with a crane, which stops production around the yard. It stops a lot of things. Health and safety is a huge thing. So when we built this one here, we actually fitted cranes inside the building. They can take them off, and you'll see it when we move in. The section of the still was removed and dropped down onto a flatbed lorry and drove off out the site. So everything has been thought about in this plant. So
415 years of learning.
415 years, like every day is a school day, as they say, and I think we benefited from all those days, from 415 years, to ensure that this is the best it can be. And to think this is only half of this plant, that we have the opportunity to grow again. So instead of being a 5 million litre distillery before this plant, we're now 11 million and producing 24/7. We have the possibility to go to 17. Like, that's phenomenal.
We just need to drink more, is that what I'm hearing?
100%. And fantastic news for us this week as well. We've just launched a 25 and a 30-year-old whiskey. I am so excited. They waited so I was their master blender so that we could be this journey together. We'll just go back up this stair here and we'll take you into the still house. To be in a company that, like, the 19th of April was my 19th anniversary. To get to celebrate with a new distillery, with a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, we've got the whiskey of the PGA. This has been, we've done our, we've had our 1 million cases, sales. Like, this is dreamland. This is just fairy tale stuff. And it's only the beginning. We have wonderful owners now who believe in what we believe in for years. They're passionate about innovation. They're passionate about all the work that we've been doing. Our Causeway collection's out there showing these bespoke little barrels that we have there that offer something really different. We've our core collection now with a 25 and 30 in it. And it's endless possibilities. 30-year-old is not the oldest whiskey we have.
Go on.
That's all I'm saying. So we have such an array of variety here at Bushmills that over 460,000 casks in the warehouse, over 65 million litres of alcohol.
So there's more to come as well here.
There is more to come. It's definitely, and this plant here is allowing for the future. Whiskey takes 3 years. If we work it out, July 21, we put our first spirit down. We're almost halfway there. There'll be whiskey out of this plant before you know it.
We're back in the main.
Back in the main visitors experience. And we are going to go into our still house. Now, we are dismantling from our party last night. We had to have a birthday party. So once you go in, you will see them working, but oh my, just block that out and see the copper. Come on, EC.
How amazing is that? Part one of our distillery tour of the Causeway Distillery, the new Causeway Distillery, Bushmills Causeway Distillery on the north coast of Antrim, the Causeway Coast, where I've spent the last week getting to know and understand and explore this brand new distillery with Alex Thomas, Master Blender, Colin Megan, Master Distiller, with Lauren McMullen, brand ambassador, and see firsthand just the passion at play, the application of their excitement, and as Greg Anderson said here, the giddiness, love the giddiness, pure joy. It is an incredible facility. I've never seen a distillery expansion or add-on quite like it. It's bigger. This expansion, the Causeway Distillery expansion of the distillery site, is itself bigger than most other Irish distilleries. 10 copper pot stills, 10 of the fermenters. It is an extraordinary facility that is future-proofing itself for hopeful demand, expected demand for malt whiskey. And no better person to bring us around than Master Blender Alex Thomas. Incredibly passionate. Nobody markets Bushmills quite like her, and nobody can talk to the production quite like her. And somebody who for the last 19 years has been flying the flag for Bushmills in various capacities. When I was there during the week, having lunch, one of the anecdotes Alex shared was early on in one of her first days there, she was working under Billy Lighton. And Billy Lighton, you'll know him as the Master Blender today in Middleton Distillery, responsible overseeing the likes of Redbreast and the spot whiskies. But he started his journey up on the North Coast, spent many years working in Bushmills, and Alex, long before she became a blender, was working, helping Billy fill sample bottles. And today, Billy Lighton's the Master Blender of Middleton. Alex Thomas is the Master Blender of Bushmills. And it's extraordinary to see the people that have come through both distilleries. Colin Megan used to be Billy Lighton's boss. Dave Quinn, former master distiller at Bushmills, is now the master of whiskey science at Middleton Distillery. And so there's great camaraderie, great connection, and great skill sharing and sharing of just a brain trust that we all get to be the beneficiaries of as thirsty consumers for Irish whiskey. Some questions there that we didn't get a chance to answer that we'll do our best to answer before we move on to part 2, which we'll be doing shortly. Dee wants to know if the growth of local barley meets the ambitious demands of Irish whiskey. Asking for a friend. Yeah, there's great capacity for growth for availability of barley. The barley that's used in Bushmills comes from Kildare, comes from Republic of Ireland, and there is plenty of space for growth in barley. In fact, most barley that's used in Ireland, malting barley is used for cattle feed, animal feed, more than beer and whiskey. So there's tremendous growth potential for barley, and there's the capacity, there's the land, and there's the capacity to be able to service it. Amy can't wait to visit and tour it. Greg says he'd love to get a bottle of the 33-year-old. Greg, Heathrow Airport, they're going fast, and when they're gone, they're gone. They may not have a Causeway collection whiskey of that age again. So that's something, if you do want to get hold of it, I'd be pulling strings and calling friends to see who can get hold of that for you. Julie says she has to get back there again. Yeah, I'd recommend it. Lauren, Alex is a diamond. Steve wants to know, is it just him, or has there been a shift in accessibility to Bushmills since Alex and Lauren have either been hired or promoted? Well, Alex has been there for 19 years. Lauren's been there for 9 years. The shift in accessibility is because we've all come together as a community and we have asked for access. They've given us access. They've offered us access. And I don't think there's a greater meeting of the minds than between Alex, myself, and Lauren over the past few years, coming together to have the crack, to hang out, to talk about whiskey, to share our passion collectively for it with each other and with you all. I think we've all been better for the community relationships that have been built up there. We couldn't do any of this without Alex and without Lauren, so we're very, very thankful to them for all their help in showing us around. And it's been a fantastic few years getting to know them and getting to know Bushmills. Look, I grew up in Middleton, near Middleton in County Cork, 12 miles from Middleton, and I get a lot of gentle ribbing down here in Cork from people asking me, what are you doing going all the way up there to Bushmills? Don't we have great whiskey down here in Middleton? And there's a lovely, playful competitiveness between the folks who work in Middleton and the folks who work in Bushmills, each wondering what the other is doing for our community or what the other is up to. And I've always said I just follow the crack and I follow the flavor, and both things can be had in both places. So long may there be crack and flavor coming out of Bushmills and coming out of Middleton, and we'll just pursue it. And that's what we'll do. Chris says that Alex and Lauren are a Bushmills dynamic duo. Kristen says something she loves about Irish whiskey is that there really isn't competition, just camaraderie. People rooting for each other. It's just so kind and lovely and communal. It absolutely is. And you see it within a distillery, and you see it externally to a distillery, between distilleries. And you see there are many examples of larger distilleries lending their staff to smaller distilleries to help them dial in their distillate, or help them get their fermentations right, or help lend some advice. Many of the distilleries in Ireland are part of associations like the Irish Whiskey Association. They sit on boards together and panels together and committees together. They're part of groups together, technical groups, marketing groups, tourism groups, and they help each other out. They provide answers to others' questions, and those that have gone ahead provide answers to those that are coming up. And it is wonderful, wonderful to see it. It's very rare to see people stonewalling in the industry and not wanting to help or not wanting to be part of it. And when you do see it, they stand out, but there's just so few of them. It's just great to see such a lovely interest in Irish whiskey, and in it all succeeding. The rising tide, raising all the boats up. So a lot of you have gotten to know Lauren, gotten to know Alex through our lock-ins, our Meet the Maker events, our whiskey bus. And to me, that's what this is all about. We all have individual tastes, we all have individual palates, and we all have different budgets for what we can spend on whiskey. But I think what unites us all when we're even interested in Irish whiskey is the people. And we can hang out and chat and meet those that represent the brands and make the brands. And I think you'll agree that the passion, the giddiness, the excitement, the love for Irish whiskey, the love for Bushmills that came across there from Alex, and indeed from Cullen Master Distiller, sharing how excited they are. That was so evident over the few days for the launch of the distillery, the official opening of the distillery this week. It was only yesterday I came back from it. And there was not a feeling of stress. There was 90 of us there for a launch event. A very elaborate launch event, very elaborate dinner and tastings and tours and events. And I didn't see a bead of sweat on anybody. I just saw smiles, and I saw people coming to ask genuine questions about whether you're enjoying yourself and what we were enjoying, and sharing their stories of the 30 years they worked in the distillery, or the 10 years they'd worked at the plant, or the 5 years they worked in bottling, or in the case of Alexander, the Cooper, the 30 plus years he's been there. Now his son is there as well. Just an incredible feeling of camaraderie and just happiness and kind of pride for what they do. So that's why I'm so happy to showcase this, showcase the distillery, and share it with you, in the hopes that you get to go along and visit as well. So the next phase of our tour tonight is we're going to move on into the still house. We're going to see the real heart of the operation, where the flavors that are created during fermentation are concentrated. The distillery, the stills don't create flavor, rather they concentrate it, they isolate it, they identify it. Those flavors have come through from the barley, from the mashing, the fermenting. And the still house is where you get your beer turned into your spirit, which is what we want. We want our spirit to be of a certain ABV. We need it to be of a certain ABV so that we can end up with a whiskey at least 40% ABV. We'll talk more about the latest Bushmills whiskies. We'll talk more about the whiskies that are on the market already from the distillery after part 2. But I'll take more of your questions, throw them in there as you go. And let me know what you'd like to know about it. Lauren's in the comments as well, answering as many questions as she can. If we can't get the answers to some of your questions tonight, we'll do our best to get them over the next few days. But hopefully you're enjoying this. These are really special opportunities for us to get to go behind the scenes. It's the first ever on-camera private tour of the distillery. Nobody else has ever seen it on camera. We're really, really lucky. So I'm thankful for you, the community, for being of such thirst and size that you demand answers and access. And I think we got it in the last week, and we're all the richer for it. So enjoy part 2 of our tour of the new Causeway Distillery, Bushmills expansion, and look forward to chatting with you at the end of this segment.
Morning, gents. Just follow me in here till you see this. Who ever had their dinner in a still house? I did. Look at this. Look at the space. We have got room in here to put well over 100 people comfortably to enjoy the sun setting in those beautiful windows, to watch the copper glow. But this is the same as the other still house. So anybody that has visited us and went to the other distillery, you're experiencing the same thing here, but you're just seeing it different. You get to see every still in its full glory. The charge size is the same. The difference in this room is we heat recovery. So the TVR, the thermal vapor recompression, we have it here so that we can draw off all of that heat. So rather than heating things up and cooling them down, we have a tank out the back which holds all that, and you can draw it off at each of the different levels, which means we are about 30% less energy usage in this building. That's huge in this stage. So there's not many other distilleries can claim that in such a turnaround. Just have a look down. At the night time, the stills are lit up in the windows. It looks like the fires are glowing under them like they did years ago. It just is such a magnificent place. I keep saying I want my office over in that far corner. When the sun sets in here, all you need is an armchair and a whiskey, and you will definitely feel as if you are in heaven. Come on down till you see. The cranes are in action today, look. They're using them to lift down the equipment from last night. So you can see each of the stills have the joins so that we can take them out section by section. So we don't want to put the full copper still in at one time because it takes time to get the character. And that's what we were doing when we were starting up. It was getting the character from the stills. The process was going to give us it really quickly. And once we got running, we were really able to get the shape of the still, made it much, much easier for us. But you can come down, you can see out here the amount of space that we have. So any section of the still can come out. The crane above us can lift it, take it over to the window and drop it down into the flatbed lorry. Now you can see out this window here as well. Bushmills distillery wouldn't be here without the village, and the village wouldn't be here without the distillery. All of those houses have watched this building be erected over the last 18 months and longer because we've been in production, and not one of them have shared pictures of this building. They let us do that last night. Like, we are so grateful and thankful for that. So this piece of land that you can see over here with the little hut in it, we've given it back to the village. They're going to be using that for allotments and able to bring their kids in and plant vegetables and grow up right beside the distillery and watch us produce that amazing whiskey that they'll get to enjoy while making the wonderful vegetables and things for their own families. So it's about giving back. They love what we do here. The majority of them work here or have family that works here, and the next generation is there in the village to come. So fantastic. The roof gets to stay on here.
Take away. All yours.
When you come to Bushmills, you want to be able to enjoy your whiskey your way, and whether that's indoor or outdoor, this distillery will offer you it. So you've seen our amazing stills, so now you want to go up to the bar, enjoy one of our great whiskies. Which one would you pick?
After the other night, maybe the 25-year-old.
25 and 30 are amazing. They're splitting the room, which is great for me because I don't have enough stock for absolutely everybody like the same one. So this gives me a chance to offer and showcase Bushmills' style in different barrel types. So
when you mentioned that they're core whiskies, is it core with an asterisk in terms of the availability and how much you got?
We have a limited amount each year, but I have enough of 25, there's 24, there's 23, there's 22 coming behind, and that's why we waited so long. Bushmills has been said to be the sleeping giant, but it's patience. It's patience to know that when you put something out, you're not giving it to people that they can't continue to have it. If they really love it, we want to have it in our core range so that you can experience it every day. So we wanted a little bit more of a special place, and I think you'll agree, you're just about to come up and to see. We're sharing with the angels a little higher up here, but you can stand on the balcony and look out all over through the process. Indoor, or you can go outside and experience something special. Now at the minute we are just a working distillery, but we have a vision for our visitors. So use your imagination. In this room, it was used for our event, but you can go out here if the door's open, which it may not be, so let's see. No, they're going to keep us in, but look at that out there. You can take your whiskey out of this room, stand in that beautiful balcony, look at our amazing barrel park. Look at the entrance to Sharva House as you walk in. Sharva House links back to Hugh Anderson, who registered the pot still and Bushmills distillery in 1784. You can walk up that beautiful walkway up to see the front of this distillery. You can stand here and watch others come and join you. And if you line it up right on a good day, you can even see the sea from here.
Is there an extra charge if you see the sea?
Absolutely not. It's a prize you get a whiskey if you find it.
So this distillery experience will be part of the overall tour experience for Bushmills, or will they be separate tours?
We want to keep this as separate. Causeway Distillery is a continuation from the spirit point of view and the growth of the brand, but we want to offer a different experience here. So that's why we want to get it right. We want to get the spirit right, we want to get our distillate process there, and the product, we need it. We need the whiskey in years to come, but now we really want to spend the time to ensure that we get this bit perfect as well, but we can offer something different. It's great for the area. We want to bring tourism to here, we want to bring jobs to here, whether it's inside the distillery or out, and this will give us the perfect opportunity to do that. So again, it's giving back to the community. They're part of our family here in Bushmills, and they were all outside watching the light show last night, and it was great to see that they wanted to come out and shout from the rooftops about our birthday as well. So again, it's important for us to give back to them. So you'll be able to sit in this room and view the still house, or go outside and look at that beautiful sunny day. Before you go out, you end up on a different little beat. I know where I'll take you. Now, we'll go down a few levels here. So, look at that. We're at ground level. But are we? Where are we? How come we can still go down? Let's go see. We're always thinking of the future. We're always thinking about how things can be left for those that come after us, the way we were left things that came for us from those that came before. So imagine going to an underground bar.
I can imagine.
Well, you're just about to see where that could be. Now again, it's our green room from last night, but look at this. All underground. Look at the space we have in here. How many whiskies could you not have in here? How many parties could you not have in here? But if this isn't good enough and you want something a little bit more peaceful and quiet, we've got another wee space. Behind every door is another secret cave. Oh, look at this. And from here you can go outside. You can walk up, you see our barrel park. It's almost like a secret room nobody knows about. Do you know what? I wonder, do we know anybody that could do a lock-in? I think we could maybe find somebody. Look at this. Good morning, how are you?
Very best, yourself?
Great. Look at that. All sitting ready for filling with more whiskey from this amazing distillery.
Usually you've got barrels outside. Tell us why it's okay to store outside.
So we're very lucky that we have great quality casks, but you don't want them drying out. You don't want any of this opening of the staves to happen before we can get our whiskey in there. So for us, we've got the perfect climate to keep them outside. Because we turn around our casks so quickly, we're able to store them outside to keep them tight, so no issues for the coopers. They check them before they go in, but it reduces the amount of casks that would potentially leak in your warehouse. We want to ensure every single drop we put in there stays inside unless it's sharing with the angels. There's currently about 27,000 barrels sitting there in front of you. So we're filling between 4,500 and 6,000 barrels a week. So that's really only 4 weeks supply. Now I always like to think of, we're talking about the angel share, we also have to consider there's a bit of devil's cut involved in whiskey as well. So I can't help it when I look at the front of this building. It's in two halves. This side is the prison. This is for the devil. But the angels need it somewhere to share too. So follow me this way and you'll see where we house there. We've got a lovely bit in the middle that just welcomes anyone that comes to share whiskey with us.
Oh, yeah, I'll grab that.
Just up this way, past the entrance. And here you see our cathedral for our angels and our amazing stills. Look at those windows. More importantly, look at those stills. When the curtains come down today after our event, that's what you'll see. If you drive up from Port Ballantrae, look up, look at the skies and you'll see our amazing building, you'll see our stills, you'll see it in all its glory lit up at night.
The big question is, are you happy with it?
Oh, the words just cannot describe how happy we are. This has been the best experience in my 19 years. I've got to launch 2 amazing whiskies. I've been part of an amazing build that doesn't come once in a lifetime, it's once in a generation or 10 generations to do. It is such a pride for Bushmills today. We are so excited. We're celebrating with our staff today. Everyone is just on cloud 9, and how could you not be?
Would you like a few Americans to come over and see you?
I want Americans to come and enjoy this. Like, where else do you want to go in Ireland? You have to come to the home of the oldest licensed distillery in the world and share some of our beautiful whiskies.
Well, congratulations on 19 years, congratulations on 415 years, on the opening of the distillery, on 1 million cases, on 2 new whiskies. We'll be up to top this next week.
I'm telling you, bring it on, you keep challenging, we'll keep throwing it back at you.
How can I get excited watching that and seeing Alex jump around, proud that she is of the distillery. And I'm delighted. I couldn't be happier and be prouder for the team Bushmills for what they've achieved in the opening of the biggest expansion in history of Irish whiskey, really certainly malt Irish whiskey, and much more to come. You have to think that this excitement, this investment, passion, a family that owns the distillery now, that believes in it, that is putting a lot of money, most that has been invested in the distillery since it was built. And future should demand keep up is really promising Bushmills and for the old Bushmills Distillery for Causeway Distillery. So congratulations to Alex, congratulations to Lauren, and to Colin, and to the team, and to Proximo Spirits, and the Beckman family for what they've achieved here. It's something really special, and despite the size, despite the scale, it still feels like you can connect to the people, you can connect to what they're making, you feel part of it. It's not informal. It's not pretentious. It's not out of reach. In fact, it's just another way to connect to what they've been doing for 415 years. And I was very privileged to be there and delighted to get to share the video with you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the tour. If you did, let me know in the comments. Lots of smiling faces. Lots of smiling faces. So not saying that my phone is echoing, is it? Let me see. Testing 1 2 testing 1 2. I have no idea what I sound like because I don't hear the feedback coming. Let me know if it's message me there privately. It's still bad. Hopefully it's coming through all right. Still bad. All right. All right, how about that? That's going to be not as great sound, but you're going to hear me all right. All right, thanks for all the suggestions there on how to fix it. Good job it didn't happen when we were touring, right? You can hear that okay, I'm sure. I'll give it a chance. There you go. That's good. All right, sounds good. Well, then we can pull this one away. Now, all right. Yeah, an amazing chance to see the distillery. Really proud of Alex and the team, Lauren and the Beckman family, and Proximo Spirits, and everybody who works at Proximo for putting together an amazing launch event and launching a distillery that is just an incredible facility, and something that's going to go from strength to strength so long as demand for Irish whiskey keeps up. So long may it keep up and long may it continue. All right, I'm going to pour another drop of Irish whiskey. Let me know what's in your glass. Lots of you giving me suggestions. Everyone's a sound engineer. All right, give me 2 seconds here now. Pour yourself something else in your glass. What have you got to drink? I'm going to pour something special here. All right, let's try the, I'll reconnect my audio. They say never work with animals and children or microphones. Okay. Testing. 1 2 3 4 5. All right, what do you think of that? Does that sound any good? If it's not, I'll switch back. I'll wait to hear from you. Am I still a cyborg, a Dalek, something wild? All good. All right, great. All the sound engineers, you deserve a raise. You deserve a whiskey. You deserve a Bushmills for your help. Thank you so much. All right, I am moving on to a 1-of-1 bottling. The only bottle in the world of it. Many of you will be very familiar with my requests to Bushmills, my non-joking yet joking playful hints that I would love a whiskey cask for Stories and Sips Whiskey Club, and that I will still work on that non-stop. We did get a Stories and Sips bottling, which is the only problem is it's only one bottle, and it's 1 of 1. This is
a 2000, so a 21-year-old or 20, almost 23-year-old single malt that has been aged in French oak. But wait for it. It's a volcanic stone release. I'm going to show you the label here. Volcanic stone, French oak, 51.3%, non-chill filtered, cask strength, specially bottled for Barry and for Stories and Sips. See Stories and Sips on the side there from Alex. She gave this to us as a gift. What has been done with this one, and to give you some sense of what's in the, Alex talked about 460,000 casks in the warehouses, and they have some of the best whiskey on the island of Ireland maturing, and few of us have ever had the chance to taste just some of the extraordinary experimental stuff they have going on there. This is one of those things. It's one of one. What they did was, so you heard Colm Egan, the master distiller, talking about how the river, the water source for Bushmills runs over basalt rock. It basalt leaches minerals out of that rock into the water. That water is used for making the whiskey, and so those minerals are involved in the whiskey. In the production of the whiskey, what they've done here is they took volcanic rock, basalt, volcanic stone, which is what basalt is. Basalt is the production, is the what resulted from volcanic eruptions 100 million years ago in Ireland, and the shifting of the tectonic plates, the American plates and the European plates, the separation of those, creating massive gaping wounds in the Earth's core and in the Earth's surface, the rocky surface that allowed lava to erupt, create islands, create mountains, create countries. The stone that dried out, the lava that dried out, became what we now know today as basalt, is one such example of volcanic rock. And sound's going again. All right, we'll fix this. Bear with me. How's this? Can you hear this? We're going to get this fixed. We will get this fixed. Testing. 1, 2, 3. No. Testing. All right. Okay, you can hear me. Clear audio. All right. We have 4 different mics here, folks. We're going to figure it out, you know. Thanks for letting me know. Where did I cut off? Tell me where I cut off, and I'll fill in the gaps. In the meantime, I'm going to pour a drop of this whiskey that none of you heard anything about. We're pouring from bottle 1 of 1. What did you miss? Start from the beginning, says Chris. Start from the start of the night. Okay. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the American plates and the European plates separated, creating enormous volcanic eruptions that resulted in the creation of Iceland and Ireland and all kinds of different mountains and islands and all kinds of things. The lava dried, the lava formed rocks that we now know as things like basalt. Basalt is a rock that's full of minerals that have come from the Earth's core. The water source for Bushmills, St. Colum's Rill, runs over basalt rock, takes minerals out of that rock, uses them in the production of Irish whiskey at Bushmills. I have a whiskey here that Alex Thomas gave us. It is a Stories and Sips bottling, but it's only one of one. There's only one bottle in the world. It is a bottle of volcanic stone French oak, specially bottled for Barry from Alex Thomas, and it says Stories and Sips on the side. It's our Stories and Sips bottling. There's only one of them, sadly. However, what has happened in this case is the whiskey has been aged for 23 years in French oak, but before the barrel of French oak, the French oak barrel is filled with whiskey, basalt is put above the barrel and mineral water is poured over the basalt into the barrel. That water extracts more minerals from the basalt. It's left inside the barrel. It soaks into the wood. That water is now containing additional minerals from the volcanic rock. The barrel is then emptied. It's then filled with single malt whiskey, and it is left there for 23 years. It is the only volcanic stone Irish whiskey that we know of in the world. It's bottled at 51.3% ABV, and it is an example of the experimentation that's coming out of Bushmills that nobody ever knew about. There's experimentation. There's wild things that they're experimenting with cask-wise. Of course, they have the same single malt. They have no mash bills in Bushmills. They just have one single 100% malted barley. They don't change that. But what they do change is the length of time they age for. What they do change is the cask types that they use, the finishing that they deploy as well, with the likes of the Causeway collection. But this is a single malt, 2000 year, it was distilled in the year 2000, spent 23 years in French oak cask that had been filled with water from volcanic stone. How about that? So sláinte. It has to be tasted to be believed. And that's an awful thing for me to share when we've got one bottle. It's rich. I'm going to take some time with this one. I'll come back to this. There's so many flavors coming through in this. And it's not like any other single malt I've had from Bushmills before. And it's a rarity. We'll talk more about it. I need to gather my thoughts on this one. I've only just opened it. It's a rare one. No, you're not all getting samples. This is the hard part where I have to just tell you, here's a cool thing I have that, look, if I see you, I'll give you a drop of it. You tell me what you're drinking, and we'll talk about that as well. Let us talk as well about the latest releases. So there's a 25-year-old and a 30-year-old whiskey released from Bushmills this week as well in Ireland. They were released a couple of months ago in the United States in small quantities. I'll put a picture of them up on the screen here. So we have a 25-year-old single malt, a 30-year-old single malt. These are some of the oldest, not of course the oldest, that they have available in the quantities that they need to be able to fulfill a release. So there is stock in the warehouses that I suspect goes north of 50 years old that hasn't seen the light of day, and I hope it does at some point. These are very unusual and very, I would say, very scarce whiskies, in the sense that it's not often that you get a 25-year-old and a 30-year-old whiskey forming part of the core range of a whiskey lineup. And the reason that you can't is because there's only 3 distilleries on the island of Ireland that could give us a 25 or a 30-year-old whiskey: Bushmills, Middleton, and the Cooley Distillery. Nobody else. I've never seen a 30-year-old whiskey from Cooley. They're out there, I'm sure, whether they were all blended away or sent out to Japan or found some other home, I don't know. But whiskies were being distilled 30 years ago in Cooley. And of course, we know that Middleton has whiskies up to 50 years of age. But these are the oldest and I think the most expensive whiskies that have ever been released as part of a core range. The 25-year-old whiskey is a 46% ABV, non-chill filtered. It's a single malt. It's been matured for between 4 and 6 years in bourbon barrels before being finished in ruby port pipes for up to 21 years. Now, this begs the question, what's a finishing and what's a maturation? 21 years to me is not really a finishing, but more an entire maturation or a secondary maturation. This was my favorite of the two that I tried over the last 2 days. Rich, complex, intense notes of ripe hedgerow dark fruit mingled with honey and gentle toasted wood. The 30-year-old, distilled in 1992, is the oldest expression released ever as part of the Bushmills core range. Now, there's a 33-year-old out there, a 32-year-old out there, but they're not part of the core range. They're one-off releases, single casks, whereas the 30-year-old and 25-year-old will be available in larger quantities each year. This is the 30-year-old is bottled 46% ABV as well, non-chill filtered, matured for 14 years in bourbon barrels before being aged for 16 years in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. Signature sherry aromas of dried fruits and a deep and perfect PX complexity. Stunning bottles, stunning packaging, maybe the most impressive packaging I've seen yet. I've shared maybe thoughts that some of the packaging for the Causeway collection could be a little bit more elevated. Certainly when you get to 32, 33 years of age, maybe it's not as good as these ones. 25 and 30 are phenomenal, heavy, weighty. Now, that's going to cost more for shipping, I'd imagine, but they're stunning, stunning bottles to hold and to touch. Not cheap. The 25-year-old, 850 euros, so about $900 for the 25-year-old. The 30-year-old is a staggering 2,000 euros, or about $2,300. Why are they so expensive? Well, you'd have to ask the people that price it that way. But what I will say is that exclusivity, rarity, scarcity, these whiskies there's just not many of them out there. Plus, here what we have now for the first time is an Irish whiskey industry that's able to get these prices. I don't think you'd begrudge the industry the chance to compete with the Macallans, the Bowmores, the Dalmores, the Pappy Van Winkles of the world. And for too long, Irish whiskey has sat on the lower shelves. Every Irish whiskey can't be for every Irish whiskey drinker. I can't drink these regularly because I can't afford to drink them regularly. Just like most Scotch whiskey drinkers can't afford to drink Macallan 25 regularly, or Bowmore 60-year-old. These are whiskies that are for a certain segment of the population. And God bless you if you can afford them and they're within your budget, go for it and support the industry. But we need all areas, all segments, all sectors of the market to be fulfilled and to be serviced. And whether you want to spend $25 in a bottle or $2,500 in a bottle, there should be one for you out there in Irish whiskey. Otherwise, we're only sending people to Scotch and to bourbon. We don't want to do that. Or to Japanese whiskey. No, let's keep them within Irish whiskey. So these whiskies will be available in small quantities, to 3,500 bottles of the 25-year-old and 1,500 of the 30-year-old, if my memory serves me correctly, in the first batch. And then, as Alex said in the video, she has 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old stock coming up behind to meet the demands for the 25-year-old and probably the same for the 30-year-old as well as it comes along. Richard says Teeling has at least a 32-year-old. Not the distillery, it doesn't. Teeling's name is on it, but it doesn't come from the Teeling distillery. So there's only 3 distilleries in Ireland that could have produced a whiskey that says 32 on it: Cooley, Bushmills, or Middleton. When Teeling is selling whiskey with 32 in the front of it, it comes from either Bushmills or Cooley. It's as simple as that. Any single malts 30 years above their Cooley or Bushmills, and that's it. 25/30 need to source. Lauren in there quickly saying it isn't Teeling's own liquid. That's it. One of the ways to tell when whiskey is sourced from one distillery or another, especially when you get to older single malts, although it's not always shared on the labels, if you ever see the phrase double distilled single malt of a certain age, like from 12, 15, 20, 25, 30 years of age, double distilled single malt typically will have come from the Cooley distillery. Cooley has 2 stills. Triple distilled single malt typically meant it came from Bushmills distillery. That doesn't mean that Bushmills didn't do double distillation. They did, but typically that's the case. Triple distillation from Bushmills, double distillation from Cooley. Some of the Teeling whiskies are Bushmills. Teeling, when Teeling sold Cooley Distillery, in their stock, they had not only Cooley Distillery stock, but old Bushmill stock that they had acquired themselves. So you'll find some, for example, there are some lightly peated Teeling single malts that came from experimental batches of peated Bushmills whiskies that never were released under the Bushmills name, that found their way now into Teeling whiskies. Many hands they passed through along the way to get there. Richard said, don't forget the Napa Oak 1951, isn't that 36 years old? Again, there's only 3 distilleries in the country today that can produce whiskey of a certain age. I'm not going to go back 200 years to all the distilleries that have ever produced. Napa Oak 1951 comes from a distillery that doesn't exist anymore, that's shuttered in 1954, the old B. Daly distillery. So just, to be aware that there are a handful of old whiskies that maybe have survived to today in terms of they were bottled in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s that trade hands on the secondary market. They're not the ones I mentioned when I say that there's only 3 distilleries that make whiskey today that were making it 30 years ago in Ireland. It's Bushmills, it's Cooley, and it's Middleton. That's it. There's no others. The nearest ones after that would be West Cork, Dingle, and then everything else. But there's a big 20-year gap. So really between 1989 and 2012, you've got this big gap, 20 plus years, where there was no new distillery. So the only whiskey being made on the island was really Bushmills, Middleton, and Cooley. And Kilbeggan kind of came along a little bit later as well, West Cork, Dingle, and that's when the evolution started to hit. All right. So I think you've seen what's coming from Bushmills. You're getting a sense of where they're headed. Massive investment, £60 million investment, which is about $90 million investment from the family, from the Beckman family that owns Proximo Spirits, the owners of Bushmills. It doesn't just invest in the distillery. £36 million that goes into the distillery. More has gone into site acquisition, land acquisition, warehouse building, bottling lines that have to be expanded. 2 of the areas of most need in Ireland at the moment are warehouse space and bottling space. Bushmills is in a fantastic position to have the funds and the land and the intent to be able to satisfy warehousing and bottling needs, because they got the space to grow and evolve, which is great. Not all distilleries do. So you see examples around Ireland at the moment where warehousing is being turned down by local governments who don't want, or who have met with objections from local residents who don't want warehouses in their areas. Luckily, Bushmills has now become really a distillery with a village attached to it. And the village is super supportive of everything that happens there, because so many people are employed there. It brings so many people into the town. It brings so much tourism to the North Coast. And I think there's great support for what Bushmills is doing. So that's good news. Are there any questions that we have missed? Greg wants to know, how does it compare to the 29 rare cask Pedro Jimenez? Greg, I haven't tasted the 29 rare cask Pedro Jimenez, so I don't know. Is that the one I have? The 29 rare cask Pedro Jimenez is here, but it hasn't been opened yet. It will at some point. I have too many bottles open now at the moment, but there's the 29. By the way, these prices are astronomical, and I'm not going to, for a minute, acknowledge that that's normal or that we should all be spending that kind of money. Look at the other side of it. Black Bush is maybe the greatest whiskey, dollar for dollar, that comes out of any distillery in Ireland. It beats anything I'll say it now, dollar for dollar, pound for pound, euro for euro. To me, there's not there's not a better whiskey for the price in Ireland. It beats every other whiskey value per dollar per euro per pound. Black Bush, you can have it in the United States for 30, 35 euro, $35 a bottle, less sometimes. And it's an extraordinary blend of 80% single malt, 20% grain whiskey, and even the grain whiskey. So having this conversation with Lauren over the last few days, the grain whiskey itself is made from barley, so it's a almost 100% barley blend, not even corn used in it. So Black Bush, an incredible whiskey. So you don't need to spend €2,000 to see the best of, or $2,000 to find the best of Bushmills. You can spend 35 and you get the best blended whiskey in Ireland. There's always a bottle of Black Bush around here somewhere, or some derivative of Black Bush. Here's the 80-20 PX Sherry. And again, we did a good show on this the other couple of weeks ago with Lauren and Paul Costello, talking about Black Bush and the Sexton and Single Malts. Now, one point that I wasn't raised on the video is that on the tour is that the Causeway Distillery is not just making Bushmills whiskey, it's making the Sexton whiskey, it's making the malt component that goes into Proper Number 12. Whether you like it or not, Proper Number 12 is the 4th best-selling Irish whiskey on the planet. It is north of 360,000 cases sold last year, predominantly in the United States. Also owned by Proximo Spirits. So between all of the Bushmills brands, the Sexton and Proper Number 12, the only component whiskey that they need to purchase in is grain whiskey from the likes of Middleton Distillery or Great Northern Distillery to blend for the likes of Bushmills Original or the likes of Proper Number 12. But the Causeway Distillery will be able to produce the malt, the single malt, 100% malted barley required by all three brands, which kind of future-proofs them on that side as well. Daniel wants to know any chance of a cask strength Bushmills. I mean, there are lots of cask strength Bushmills out there now, but not at the original Bushmills or Black Bush level, though I would say don't close the door on that idea. I suspect we'll see a cask strength Black Bush at some point. I suspect it. But there are all of the Causeway Coast, the Causeway releases, the Causeway collection are all cask strength. Sexton is the best value for money for a single malt, says Mark, and it's the best-selling Irish single malt in America. And Alex was the master blender responsible for the Sexton before being promoted to overall blender for the entire plant. Now, what else do we need to know about Bushmills? It will feature again, I hope, in the future on our whiskey bus tours and our Irish whiskey experiences. More to do on that side, and more that we'll hopefully announce in the coming weeks and months on our evolving Irish whiskey experiences. Our whiskey bus that comes up next in August is heading south from Dublin through Waterford onto Cork. Our next whiskey bus after that in March is going to head west from Dublin down the west coast of Ireland back to Cork and then up to Dublin. So, but we will have Bushmills experiences that we hope to have between the Causeway Distillery and the old Bushmills Distillery over the coming months as well, and we'll keep you all informed of that. So if you're visiting Ireland on your own, you might be able to do a unique experience through our Irish whiskey experiences that involve the distillery. But look, I'm really happy that we got to share this tour together. I'm thrilled that you all got to see behind the scenes and get a glimpse of what I got to see this week. The Irish whiskey industry needs support. It needs help. It needs us to drink Irish whiskey within reason within safe reasons and healthy reason. But we need more people evangelizing. We need more people talking about Irish whiskey. So the more you can do to tell your friends, your family, those who you like, that you think that they should be interested and should try Irish whiskey, even if they're Scotch or bourbon or Taiwanese or Japanese drinkers. The range of Irish whiskies available today has never been as great. There are more than 700 Irish whiskies available. We did a count recently and found 86 different peated Irish whiskies. This is unprecedented. The size of the Irish whiskey industry today is bigger than it has ever been in history. If we were around in the 1800s with the size of the industry we have today, we may not have suffered as much as we perhaps did in the 1800s and early 1900s. Who knows? But in any case, we're in a new golden age and we want it to continue. So the big distilleries, the smaller distilleries, all need our support. And it doesn't mean just buying the bottles. It means maybe following them on social media, liking their posts, sharing what they're doing, chatting with them. Maybe you know distributors, maybe you know people who could connect them with accounts and bars and restaurants where Irish whiskey should be listed. If there isn't enough Irish whiskey where you're living, in your states, in your cities, in your towns, you can ask for it. You can you can email your local representatives, your state liquor boards, or whomever is responsible for listing it, to share your thoughts and hopes that more Irish whiskey could be listed. Some states don't have the same offering as others. If you have connections in the worlds of distributors or importers or those who could help smaller distilleries, I'm sure they'd be very appreciative of any connections as well. So all I'm saying really is that, look, it's a people business. We all enjoy hanging out together. The more we can fly the flag and raise that tide together, the more we're all going to do well out of it. I've made great friendships in this world, and I know many of you have as well. And I've become friends with so many of you here now tonight, and I hope that continues. And I'm looking forward to seeing many of you in person over the coming months in various places. Thank you most sincerely to Alex Thomas, Master Blender at Bushmills, for her kindness of time, of generosity of spirit and spirits in bringing us closer together through her passion, her giddiness, her excitement, her love for Ireland, Irish whiskey, distilling, whiskey, our community. Alex is in our Irish Whiskey Fans of America Facebook group all the time, answering questions. She's in the middle of one of the busiest distilleries in Ireland, and she's in our group answering questions, responding to people. Lauren McMullen is exactly the same. No better ambassador for Irish whiskey we find. And we should be just very thankful that we've gotten to meet these people. I'm very, very, very happy and very thankful that these people are in my life. And it's these connections that we all make that are going to create more experiences for us all to enjoy Irish whiskey together. So look, I think that's it. I think we should quit while we're ahead and toast each other, toast Bushmills, toast Alex, toast Lauren, toast Colm, and all the team at Proximo. Thank you for inviting us to be part of your launch, to be part of your celebrations this week, your birthday. Congratulations on 1 million cases. May this only be the start, and may the 1 million cases be the worst year for the next century. May it only grow from there. So slaunch it to everybody. Thank you all for joining. And if you joined late, you can catch this replay tomorrow or later on. And be sure to post this. Just post a link to this video on your Facebook pages and the Facebook groups that you're part of. If you're part of any big Facebook communities, maybe they'd like to see a tour of this. Why don't we share it? Copy, paste the link, give everybody a look at it. We'll bring people closer to Bushmills and closer to Irish whiskey. So, Sinead, that's it. Slaunch everybody. We've said enough. Have a great night.